good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be, whatever you may be doing. Hello and welcome. My name is Tariro Mundawarara, and I'm a meditation meditation artist. Still don't have the right phrase for that. I'm also the author of Circling Back, the newsletter, and Stories from the Soul, the podcast. And I have my good partner in crime and friend, Sarah Kartika. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself to the good people of the world?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me here, Tari. Like you said, I'm Sarah Kartika, based in Switzerland. I have been on a journey with Tari for a while. We started with some what we call emotional rehab, right? And how we got into this whole self development and healing space and meditation, until I found internal family systems and started to really get training in that, because I find that this is such a holistic, inclusive approach to work with parts that are, in my own experience, sometimes really standing in the way of what other parts might want to do or in life. And it's a very gentle approach that I can feel that my parts, they love it when I connect with them in that way. And it creates self-trust, which I didn't have a lot in my past, and resilience and transformation that doesn't come from the usual approach of mindset work or trying to fix yourself, but actually, and I love the saying, loving all your parts into their evolution back to how they have been before trauma or burdens took them over and forced them into roles. So that is kind of like where I'm from and why I'm doing this. So, yeah.
So, Sarah, can you just give us a quick recap for those who maybe joined a bit late last week or those who weren't here? Just a quick recap on chapter 1 and what we spoke about last week.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to do that. So, like you said, last week we just talked about chapter 1. And one of the most prevalent or most important distinction that was outlined in chapter 1 is the difference between the monomind set and the multiplicity of the mind. So the monomind or the unitary mind is something that in classical psychology or in just kind of like everyday life is seen something as normal. It's kind of like the idea that humans have one mind and one body, right? In psychology, when we talk about having separate autonomous personalities, we often talk about dissociative identity disorder, which just means that certain parts are in certain extreme roles. Um, and, we have very little self-energy that we can basically navigate between them, or the parts are not aware of other parts, right? They're really kind of like really split because there's so much in their own roles that they cannot see more. And the problem is that this is something that pathologizes the whole idea of having parts, because parts are not a result of trauma like in classical psychology is still thought of. Now it's clearly starting to open up because internal family systems and this approach is making more and more its way into mainstream. But what a lot of people in psychology, or even us ourselves, right? We start to fear our parts because we think that they are something that has only been created through fragmentation of the unitary mind when something traumatic happened in our lives, which is not true. In internal family systems, we are talking about parts that we are born with parts. We have those sub personalities or sub minds, however you want to call them. And it's likely that you experienced your parts. Dick Schwartz makes this beautiful example of the decision. You have an important decision and you have a lot of voices and thoughts and opinions going on, which is an indication of parts weighing their options about what the best course of action would be in that scenario, right? So
Mm.
there's nothing pathological about it. It's just different parts with different opinions, different values, maybe even, right? Different interests, different personalities, and they are just talking with each other. What are we going to do now? Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, for me, and it would be interesting to hear what everybody on on the session thought about that on chapter one, because I came across IFS through you.
Yeah.
And I was doing things ironically in very split and separate parts. So in many ways, it was kind of a good way to start. So I was doing inner child work, then I was doing focusing on shadow work. I did some work on the ego, and you spoke about IFS, and then I was like, hang on, that makes sense. And reading the book or listening to the book, I it's been really quite refreshing to almost, have, done the exam, answer the questions, and now you're reading the context of what the questions were and be like, okay, yeah, now that makes sense. And, almost reverse engineering it. And this thing about the unitary mind, the mono mind, I always get it wrong, um, was really very interesting for me because I think accepting the fact that we don't have a single train of thought and we aren't singular,
And that's
that's a really big shift to make because popular culture has made us believe that, hearing voices in some ways is spiritual, you know, and well, I'll just leave it as spiritual. And in other places, it's almost evil and something to be shunned. And, as, you know, Richard Schwartz talks about in the book, you kind of try and meditate and cope your way out of those thoughts as opposed to sitting in and leaning in and embracing them. And, I was just looking at what Heidi said about families from Denmark and likewise you, Bodil. Like, there are stories that are etched within us genetically. Like it's just for me personally reality. Um, I look at my kids and I see them do things which I'm like, how on earth do they know that? Because they've never experienced that because, their grandmother passed away before they were alive. Well, for one of my kids at least. But that's what she did. That's how she did this. And it's just like, it's there. It's definitely there. And so I just find this book so refreshing and so comforting. I don't want to use the word reassure, but confirm what I've been seeing and doing, you know? Yeah. And I mean, I don't know, like, guys, please feel free, type in your kind of thoughts, your experiences in chapter one. But yeah, no, I'll let you carry on, Sarah.
Yeah. I just wanted to add something to what you said, like doing bits and pieces or having these different approaches, right? Shadow work, child healing and all that stuff. I mean, we walked the same path until at some point found IFS and was also feeling that this is the one modality that takes everything together in a
Yeah.
way where that's why I'm saying inclusive. I said at the very beginning, it feels very inclusive. Inclusive meaning, I do inner child healing work through IFS, right? I do shadow work through IFS. With the
Mm.
IFS approach, I come in contact even more. And I think what makes internal family systems even more special, I wanted to say powerful, but I don't know if that's the right word. So I go for special, is that it's all about relationships. Like the
Mm.
core of internal family systems is not to fix anything, but to come really in a good relationship with the parts and also lead the parts to have good relationships with each other.
Yeah.
So, in your self energy, you are building a relationship with your parts, the secure relationship, right?
Mm.
A secure attachment. You're going to be the secure attachment figure for your parts. And you also see that, and which I found in inner child healing and shadow work, is a lot of times dismissed. You see the relationships and connections the parts have with each other and how you can help the system of relationships. So it all evolves around relationships. So you can go on and do your inner child healing work, but another protector will maybe at some point come up and be like, wait, I was not on board with that. And
Yeah.
then we think we have another shadow and we shame ourselves because we think we should have been over it. Like, no, there's nothing wrong with it. There's just another part that is now ready to be seen, and because it was in relationship with that whole system of or with that it was in relationship with that part that you healed in a way, and now that it is healed, the protector part probably feels left out or has no purpose or is confused, like what's going on? I try to protect this now. And maybe
Yeah.
there's even other protectors around it or another exile somewhere that are like, oh, this part now is healed. So what about us? What's going on? Now everything is different and the whole system feels shaky. You maybe see that in, family systems in general, not in the internal family, but outside when you have, for example, a family of mother, father, and two children, and one of the children is doing the inner work and is doing things differently, and the other three are completely not agreeing with it because they're scared of what's happening. This is what's happening within us when we do the inner healing work, and we don't, or what could happen within us when we do the healing work, and we do not see that other parts are involved in this whole structure as well, right? Because
Mm.
they're in relation, they're trying to protect each other or support each other. And if something changes, they're like, what am I doing? Right?
Mm.
So this
Yeah.
is the missing link that is so special for internal family systems when it comes to inner child healing shadow work, where we only focus on one shadow or on one part that needs to be healed instead of really looking like, hey, what else is around here, right?
Yeah. And I mean, I will say that I am very modular in that sense. I'm very modular in that sense. And I know it's one of the wants for me in terms of doing this whole journey around the book is to engage in a more communal way with the various parts. I'm very inner child, this, and hey, it's worked for me. And kind of, I just wanted to say what my eyes aren't what they used to be. Who was it? Jay. Yeah, Jay was saying it's almost easier for me to think about my ancestors being a part of me than hearing and knowing the real parts inside of me. And you know what, Jay? In this, like all practices, my kind of thoughts around it, speaking for myself and speaking to myself, is whatever works for you works for you, and let it be that. If that is how you feel in terms of where you are and what your journey is, and engaging and viewing it from that perspective, then do that. Um, in the same way that, I've looked at things in a very modular way. And what I have come to know in my short time of doing meditation, spiritual work is, you know, trust the process. It'll come, it'll show up, it'll happen. And how I do things today, I can guarantee you, mark my words, 24th of August, 2025, is not going to be the way I'm going to be doing things, later on in this whole kind of series. So, yeah. Just wanted to go through some of these other questions quickly, Sarah.
That's
Understanding is
that's
affirmative is what? Affirmative to me, affirmation grounds me, not necessarily wanting to be where I am. Grounding is a step in my process. I don't run and hide if I feel grounded. Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, for me, that's really been key. It's been so key, especially being in, the kind of professional space that I'm in where there is a lot of ego. Um, and, having a relationship with my ego, a partnership with my ego, as opposed to, and I say this to everybody, and, I've done a couple of practices about this in terms of integrating with the ego as opposed to shunning it and, ego death. And I just personally don't subscribe to it.
No, the ego
I
is,
Go on.
if I may interrupt,
Yeah,
the,
yeah, yeah,
the ego is just a cluster of protective parts.
yeah,
And they
yeah.
mean well in trying to wanting to protect you from some other more vulnerable parts and them coming up to the surface and um, shaking up the entire system within you,
Yeah,
overwhelm the entire system within you. That's what they're doing. There's
yeah.
nothing bad about the quote unquote ego, which I personally always had a bit, a little, or some parts within me always had a bit of a problem with the term ego, to be honest, because they felt not seen and heard because it has such a negative connotation in
Mm,
spirituality because it is
mm,
seen as something that we need to transcend and get rid
mm,
of. But when we look from the internal family systems perspective, they are just parts that want to protect you. They have a valid reason why they want to do that. And when we come into contact with them, they and validate them in their reasoning, kind of like, oh, okay, I see that you're doing that. What are you trying
mm.
to protect me from? What do you think would happen if you did not do this anymore? They reveal to you the more vulnerable part that is going on within you, the hurt, the pain, and then you can be with that and unburden the system.
Exactly,
So,
exactly. Sarah, can you just read? There's something that, and George, I saw your comment about um, the second exercise. So next week, George, we're going to do the mapping exercise. So this week we're going to do the getting to know your parts, and then next Sunday, Sarah will take us through the mapping exercise. So hopefully that'll help you go through that a bit better. Sarah, can you just read what Jay said in response to it? I can't see it properly on my phone.
the one that just came up.
Yes, Jay says, I
I
think what
think
I'm trying to say.
Yeah, exactly. I think what I'm trying to say is that knowing my family's stories, it is easier for me to think that is why I am who I am rather than hearing and or meeting the real parts that are inside of me, if that makes sense, because I don't know any of my parts yet.
So, Jay, if I'm hearing you correctly, I mean, your family story, is it a story that you've known before? Or is it a story that is being revealed seems like a dramatic word, but for lack of a better word, I'll use it. That's being kind of that you're starting to learn about now. Um, be interesting to know that. How those just family history, lots of strong and difficult personalities. Okay.
So in internal family systems, we do talk about legacy burdens. So the just to connect with what you said.
Hmm.
Um, so burdens are difficult experiences. They can be personal burdens. Those are direct experiences from our childhood or culture that we grew up in. Right? This means kind of like feeling betrayed or abandoned as children, abuse or loss, right? Those are personal burdens. But then there's also a part of burdens that is called legacy burdens, like a second um, category. These are inherited from parents or ancestry. They are sometimes also absorbed from ethnic groups or, in a way, also culture. So maybe I don't know if that helps you to kind of like see a little bit of a distinction there. Um, some of the energies, I'm reaching to forward into something that is not written in the book, but some of the energies that we carry with us or the burdens that certain parts within us can carry are inherited and not necessarily ours to carry. When I do some of my work, I sometimes ask how much of like percentage, how much of what I'm feeling right now is really mine and how much is not mine. And intuitively, something would come up, um, a percentage number of, maybe 80% is not mine. I was like, okay. And then we can become curious if these 80%, is something that wants to be revealed more closely to us, where it comes from, or if it's just something that we can let go. And our self energy, when we are in our self energy, we intuitively know or sense what needs to be done. We intuitively sense what wants to be seen. I once met my grandmother in her childhood. Um, not traumatic experience, but I saw my grandmother as a child, and I realized, I took on her legacy burden and I helped her, my grandmother, release her own
Mm.
burden, her own trauma. And that released something within me as well. So this is like a deeper work that this book doesn't go into. But there is a way where, we can also take on burdens from ancestry, especially when you talk about, like difficult history. Maybe in the past something happened. Of course, I don't know the details right now. And then there's also, how the family affected us on a personal level. And there's always some personal burdens with it as well, right?
Exactly.
So I don't know.
Mm. And yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, Sarah. And also, Jay, the next chapter, chapter two, speaks a bit more about burdens and unburdening. And so, you know, this week's homework for everybody is reading chapter two. So that'll also start to give a bit more context as well. Sarah Zanvard asked a question about, wanting to know a bit more about the parts which make up the ego. Could you just explain that out? I mean, the question was, can you explain a bit more about how those protective parts are appearing as the ego?
I think the question is also, what do we define in the spiritual sense as the ego, right? I'm trying to think of something right now. I'm not really sure if I understand the question right, to be honest.
I
Um,
am. I mean, if I speak for myself and kind of my interpretation of the question was, I hear it as being Zanvai asking, you spoke about the ego not being unitary and it being
yeah,
a mix of protector parts.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so, for me, Zanvai, like the ego is, and I think just thinking out loud now, and this is where I'm talking about, wanting to, not being modular. I believe I've probably been engaging with a certain part which makes up the ego. And that was probably the most prevalent part, the most prevalent protector part. And, from my understanding and from kind of, my take on it is, there are a number of protector parts who have all kind of shown up in order to protect you from X, Y, and Z. Um, and together, that's essentially what the ego is. Yes, no, maybe, Sarah? What's your outlook on it?
You just inspired me for the answer. Now I get what it's about, the question.
There we go.
So, okay, the ego, it's always, it really is. I think the first thing that I said is really kind of like, what do you define as the ego in the spiritual sense, right? But it can be different parts because for some people, the ego wants to get rid of any desires, but we have parts within us that have desires, right? For others, it can be the ego can be striving for money and success, right? And the ego can also be something where we are kind of like trying to avoid, certain responsibilities by, like not talking to people about what's really going on because we're afraid of, our own vulnerability and how they take it. That can also be the ego, right? Like a lot of it really depends what you see as the ego. That's why I have a hard time actually talking about the ego because there are so many aspects to
Yeah,
it.
it's not
And what we
singular.
label as one ego is not just one ego because it's
Exactly.
anything that takes you away from,
Self.
being in your truth, how you really feel, or how really what is really
Mm.
going on within you for certain parts. And when I say how you really feel, that truth is not you, but actually the part within you that is currently coming up. And you
Yeah.
trying to fix it or make it go away is quote unquote another part that is protective that you could see as the ego in certain ways of explaining, right? It really depends how a certain part within us wants to explain the ego. There's also a part within us that wants to understand everything, the rational mind or the analytical mind, right? That wants to understand everything. Um, I found that a lot of times within myself, and it's really kind of like, yeah, what does that part think is your ego?
Yeah,
Could
exactly.
be a good trailhead. That could be a good trailhead to see, hey, okay, I have a protector, and what is that trying to protect me from?
Yeah. And exactly. And how we've responded on the back of or as a result of the lesson which was learnt, um, and what caused X. And there's multiple parts of it. There is, as you were saying, again, speaking for self, there's probably, an arrogant aspect which, was adopted as a response to X. And then there's also, an extroverted aspect, which is a result of X. And there's also this aspect, which is a result of that. And, as I sit and think about it now, they yeah, that's really what my journey has been in terms of things, kind of fear of failure, fear of, not seeming enough. Whatever it is, it's all been a protector part that's been protecting me from something. Um, and we collectively use that word. Yeah. Um,
You
let's
know,
see what else there is. So go on, Sarah.
there is this, I have this quote here, not quote, but this part
Mm.
from the book that I just find so good. And I think before we go into the exercise, I feel, I sense right now, I'm not if it's And I don't know if this is correct, but I sense that we are talking a lot about, ego and protective parts. I think the best idea is to really go into an exercise to really get to know a part and see or feel a sense of embodiment of how that could be, which we are planning to do late today anyway. But may I just before we go into that, read this excerpt some from this book?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, because I think it illustrates so well what we just talked about, the quote unquote ego or protective part. So in the book, it says one example, and I quote, like I read from it. It is common to believe that a person who gets high all the time is an addict who has an irresistible urge to use drugs. That belief leads to combating that person's urge with opioid antagonistics, with recovery programs that can have the effect of polarizing the addictive part, or with the willpower of the addict. If, on the other hand, you believe that the part that seeks drugs is protective and carries the burden of responsibility for keeping this person from severe emotional pain or even suicide, then you would treat the person very differently. You could instead help them get to know that part and honor it for its attempts to keep them going and negotiate permission to heal or change what it protects.
Mm,
And I think this is the same that
mm,
approach that we need to make with our quote unquote ego.
mm.
Like,
Getting to know it and understand.
yeah.
Agreed. Agreed, agreed, agreed. So yeah, I mean, you're totally correct. Segueing into that, I just wanted to just look at George's question. Is it also self-imposed? Sometimes the explanations we are giving to avoid responsibility,
Where is
as in labeling it as the ego, George. Is that what you mean? So we use the ego. I think, you know what?
when
I
we
believe.
talk about self-imposed, we're thinking in the unitary mind.
Mm, yeah, yeah,
Nothing is self-imposed.
yeah,
It's parts.
yeah. Exactly, exactly.
This is what I find so beautiful in internal family systems. You can just see, like, there's a part doing that. Oh, there's a part that's driving this, like
Exactly.
thing, right? So
Exactly.
you're coming into this um, compassionate, non-judgmental, curious space of really getting to know. Oh, you're not judging yourself anymore, and I think this has been the biggest liberation for me. And I think that's just why my parts are kind of like, get this message out with internal family systems, do this work, Sarah, because it has helped my parts so much to find redemption in a way, like forgiveness and compassion and love, and they start to relax and then let go of their grip that they're having
Exactly.
slowly when they start to.
Exactly. Exactly. Once, and it's a process, it's a building of a relationship, that relationship of trust and that ability to let go. And that ability of that protector part of you to be seen, to be accepted, and for you, and to, you know, that engagement, unburdening it from what it's been carrying, you know. Um, and Yeah, so George, I hope that kind of makes some sense for you in terms of the curiosity around that piece that, even in questioning where that aspect or something is coming from or labeling it in a certain way, is a part speaking to you.
Yeah, thinking of this situation, the self-imposed, there's probably a part that is doing something, and another part is saying like you did that yourself, and it's kind of like going
Yeah,
back and forth, right? And you can already see the polarization and the relationships that parts can have with each other.
yeah,
Um, and are
Exactly. And that's
not on the
exactly
same
it.
page. They are not always on the same page.
They're not. And that's exactly it. They're not.
They
And I
all mean
think,
well, but they're sometimes like, whoop.
yeah. And for me, this chapter one, the real magic for me has been leaning into and accepting the reality of you not having a unitary mind,
Mhm.
and understanding that friction can be internally, as you said, with different parts, but manifest itself as the inner critic, or as in the book, sometimes the drill sergeant. Whatever it is, you know, there's a string to pull there. There's a string to pull there. Right. Let's get ourselves into the practice. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for that.
Yeah, thank you all also for sharing, also from a vulnerable place and honest place, and for your questions. I really honor that.
My last point is, if for nothing else, from me, and I don't know what, Sarah, your takeaway is, but my takeaway for everybody on the call for chapter one is to be comfortable with the fact that we don't exist in this mono mind, and to be comfortable with the fact that those thoughts which go through us, whether in our minds, whether it's leaving yourself a voice note, whether it's leaving a friend a voice note, or speaking to a friend on the phone, or a sibling or a friend, or whatever it is, writing in your journal, there is conversation and there's expression which is coming from a part within you. Um,
Not always.
and that's true. That's true. That's
It
true.
can be in
That's true.
yourself as well, in
It
yourself.
can, no, 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 that's true. But now you're going to chapter two, though, Sarah. Come on.
Great. All right, I'm already going to. Yes, but a lot of times we are
No, you're right.
interacting
Exactly.
with our parts,
Exactly.
parts with from other people. Yes.
Exactly. There is the authentic self in there as well. Right. So let's move into the practice. And the practice I'm going to lead today is exactly as it says on the tin, getting to know your parts, to close down from the conversation, to close down from the dialogue, to bring ourselves into the present moment, into the present space. And if your eyes are closed, keep them closed. But if your eyes are open, find a spot, find an image, find something in front of you, an object. For me, it's a bucket on the other side of the garden on a table. And just bring all your focus to that. For you, it may be a door handle, it may be a spot on a wall in front of you. Just allow yourself to transition now into this space. Bring all your focus and attention to it. To bring ourselves into the present, I want you to say gently to yourself what it is that you're looking at and where you are. So for me, it's a bucket on a table on the other side of the garden, and I'm in Cape Town, South Africa. What we're going to do now is we're going to take 2 deliberate breaths, and inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. And on the second exhale, we're going to gently close our eyes and drop into the practice. So inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, inhale through your nose, and exhale through your mouth, and gently close your eyes. And let's begin. Let's allow ourselves this moment to just settle. Feel the ground, feel the support beneath you. Feel your body resting into this moment. Your breath gently flowing in and flowing out. And whisper inward these three phrases. I am here. I am now. I am present. I am here. I am now. I am present. Now allow your awareness to slowly scan your body and your mind. Any thoughts that are present, notice them circling. Any emotions rising. Sensations, distractions, impulses, all moving within you. Really allow yourself to take it all in. And as you scan, ask inside, gently and with self-compassion, as you would speak to a child. Is there a part of me that wants my attention right now? Gently ask yourself that question as you scan your body. Is there a part of me that wants my attention right now? Might be an emotion, might be a thought that's on repeat, might be an action, something that you keep consistently doing. Or it could be a sensation sitting in your chest or your belly or your shoulders. Choose one that calls to you. Or simply gently allow one to come forward. Notice where this part sits. Where is it located in your body? Place your hand on that spot now. And notice how you feel toward it. Do you dislike it? Does it anger you? Are you annoyed by it? You fear it? Or are you curious, open and gentle? How do you feel towards it? See if you can soften the parts that are resisting, the anger, the fear, the judgment, the frustration, annoyance. And allow space for curiosity to lead. May not be simple. Just give yourself that. If need be, breathe into it. Try and elicit curiosity. And if resistance remains, that's fine, that's okay. You can even turn to those protective parts and ask, what are you afraid would happen if you let me be with this part? And breathe it in. No need to control any answers, just allow them to naturally float in. Release any tension in your jaw, tension in your shoulders. Just relax. What are you afraid would happen if you let me be with this part? And listen to what they say. Take that answer on board. And now, if you're able to, turn toward your chosen part and ask that part the following questions. What do you want me to know about yourself? What do you want me to know about yourself? Just listen. Wait quietly for whatever comes back, be it words, feelings, images, sensations. Don't think, just listen. What do you want me to know about yourself? Next, ask, what are you afraid might happen if you didn't do your job? What are you afraid might happen if you didn't do your job? Just listen. What are you afraid of if you didn't do your job? And lastly, ask, what do you need from me going forward? What do you need from me going forward? And just listen. As you hear the responses, offer that part your gratitude. Even if this part shows up as fear, criticism, or anger, see if you can thank it for the ways it has tried to protect you. Offer it your gratitude. All it's been doing is trying to protect you in the best way that it can. Whisper, thank you for sharing. Thank you for the role you've been playing. Thank you. And notice how this part responds when you do that. How does it react to your appreciation? You may have noticed that what first appeared as a single thought or feeling is actually a trailhead, a doorway into a whole part of you with its own history, role, voice, and a whole path for you to engage with. And by this practice of gently noticing it with gratitude and offering it gratitude, you've already created gentle separation. A you who is observing and a part that is being observed. A start of relationship that may not have all the answers tonight, tomorrow, but it's the beginning. And as we close, let your breath deepen. Inhale and hold gently. And exhale with a soft, gentle sigh. Again, inhale and hold. And an exhale. Offer deep bows and thanks to your part, to the one you engage with and all the others. Offer them gratitude. Thank them for what they've shared. Let them know that this isn't the last time. You will come back again more often and listen more deeply. And with that, gently thank your parts. Give them love, give them gratitude. And ask them to walk with you for the rest of the day. And inhale, exhale. Gently bring yourself back out of the practice. Roll your shoulders, roll your neck. Feel the temperature of the room. Bring warmth into your body. When you're ready, open your eyes. And yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tari. I had to put myself on mute. There was some background noise.
No worries.
I am curious how that experience was for people. Do we have some more minutes where they can share?
Yeah.
Jay had a very good question that I want to answer.
Go on, go on, go on.
He says, is exhaustion an actual part, or is it a part that is making me tired, or maybe avoid things? Ask it. The best way to know is ask it, because it could be an actual part that is exhausted. It could be also a part that is, like you said, making you tired in order to avoid something. So if you can extend curiosity, like start with the question, how do I feel towards the exhaustion? And then if you sense that you have come into a place where you find true curiosity, not performative curiosity, because some part within you wants to get rid of it, right? There's a different energetics to, or an energetic imprint to really truly being curious. There's this openness that you feel. Maybe you can also just be with that exhaustion, be like, okay, I accept it. Maybe that's the first step that needs to be done. But once you come into contact from a place of allowing or allowance and openness and curiosity, if that is later possible, ask the part.
Agreed.
We'll reveal it to you. I cannot answer you the question. Your part can.
Yeah, and Jay, the answers give them time.
Yeah, I see now. I did, but I don't
Yeah.
yet hear any answers. So I just sat
Welcome.
with it and thanked it for allowing me to rest. Yes, some parts
Exactly.
within me don't talk back to me at all. And they just need my presence, and I'm just present with them. And then they soften, and it goes on to the next part that I actually wanted to focus on. That is very possible too. I had that. I have, if I may share that one, I have a part that makes everything cloudy. It's a protective part that makes everything go blurry. and I don't have any sense of what parts or anything anymore. And when I sense that part, usually it doesn't talk back. And I'm just sitting with it, allowing it to be. That's why I said maybe you can just allow it and just be like, oh, okay, see you. And then just sit with that until it softens enough and finds safety in your presence and trusts you. And then by itself, it will step back eventually. That's my
Exactly. Exactly. And, it's the beginning of a relationship,
yeah.
and like any relationship, you know, on that first date, you're not going deep straight away, it's there's a relationship and there's a trust which comes in engaging.
Yeah, exactly. They trust is earned.
Exactly.
It's not given.
And also,
You will see that. You will sense that it is earned.
yeah, the answers sometimes aren't really in words.
Mhm.
They're in something which repeatedly starts to show up for you. It's a sense, it's a feeling. What I often say is just pay attention, just listen.
Yeah. If
Um,
you can just say, "It's okay, I'm here."
exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Like, "It's okay, honey. I'm right here. I'm right here with you."
Exactly. Guys, thank you so much for that. Um, it's been a good practice. It's been a good session. And I look forward to engaging with everybody next week. We'll do the mapping exercise next week. Sarah will take us through that this week. Chapter 2, read through chapter 2, and we'll circle back to that one. So thank you from me. Sarah, anything for you?
I just want to thank you all for your courage to
Mm,
be here and get to know your part today or some of your parts. And I want to thank your part for showing up and for all of you sharing so openly and courageously and honestly about what is going on within you and what came up for you and any questions you had. So really
exactly.
thank you all and thank your parts for being there and also, letting you get to know them.
Exactly. Thank you. Deep bows to you all. Thank you so much. Thank you to your parts. Thank you to my parts. Have a great week. And I will see you all next Sunday, same time, same place. Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.